welcome back to another Space Marine 2 video. So the devs have just told us the new patch is coming tomorrow and they're reverting a lot of changes, and this is awesome. I'm certainly excited for what they're changing. So basic things that they've changed: they've buffed the bolters, they've reversed all the difficulty settings, so they've increased the armor and ruthless, stuff like this. Anyway, I'll get into it. So let's get into this first section of the patch, basically. So hi Space Marines, as we discussed last week, we have been monitoring your feedback since last Thursday patch 4.0 and have decided to address your most pressing concerns with a new balancing update coming this Thursday. So it's bob on a week since last Thursday, and hopefully this has fixed these mistakes that they've made. Before we get to the details of the new patch, we want to thank you for all being so involved with the game and making your opinions heard. While we notice a criticism regards to difficulty adjustments, and rightly so, we'd also like to thank you for the very positive feedback on the new map Termination. No matter the feedback, we're grateful that you are so passionate about Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. The key takeaway for me personally is that I forgot that once the game comes out, it's no longer the devs' game, and it's yours first and foremost. That's a really nice thing to say. This is why, moving forward, we'd like to harness this energy by establishing public test servers. Now that's interesting. That'd be very much fun to. I'm very excited about that. They would let you try out our major balancing updates and make your voices heard before they are published into the public branches. We're hoping to make these available around early 2025. Okay, that's interesting. So stay tuned to our channels for more info. Dimitri, I do apologise, but the game director said that. Now, he seems like a very cool dude, and I'm very grateful for him to be on the team. So, what they say next? They start covering the new gameplay tweaks. So, I want to get into that. Sorted the AI director and enemy spawns. Here is our reasoning for patch 4.0 when the game came out in September. The ruthless difficulty win rate hovered around 60%. Weeks later it changed. With the changes to patch 3.0, we saw that the same win rate had jumped over 80%. Now, I understand why they've literally nerfed it so hard, because they don't want us to win like 80% of the time. That 60% seems more reasonable. It's ruthless for a reason. It's not just a cakewalk. That's the easier difficulties, obviously. And we received a lot of feedback stating that the game had become too easy, even at its maximum difficulty at the time. So, like I said, this is their point of they're trying to make the game a bit harder on the harder difficulties. For example, the win rate on the easiest difficulty dropped slightly after patch 4.0 from 95 to 93. This may not look like a lot, but the numbers aren't everything. Your feedback made it clear that the game had become more intense and stressful on the lower difficulties. Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I've only played the lower difficulties once or twice after the update, because I've been really grinding out that lethal cosmetics. I've been really trying. I mean, I've got the helmet now. I'm really glad that I've got it. I've had some really amazing teammates helping me out, and that the synergy that we had was awesome. But sadly, not everyone gets that lucky. But yeah, so they've noticed that it's more difficult even on the lower levels. This is why we're rolling back these changes. Extremist enemy spawns rates in minimal, average, and substantial difficulties will now revert back to their pre-4.0 patch levels, and will be significantly reduced in ruthless difficulty to hopefully strike a balance between how hard the game is, how hard the game was at launch, and how easy it has become with 3.0. Okay, so that makes sense. Minimal average. Okay, so they're just going into the bits and bobs that they've changed. So big thing here is the weapons that they've changed. They've buffed. They've buffed nearly all the bolters. In fact, they have buffed all the bolters. Weapons only in operations. We've been wanting to address the bolter family for a while, as they've been underperforming across all difficulty levels. This has been a frequent piece of feedback from many of you, and the data confirmed improvements were needed across the board. The percent damage increased is based on which classes have access to the kind of weapon and how bolters compete with the other options. So the auto bolt rifle, 20% increase. The auto bolt rifle it's hot trash in operations, but I'm really looking forward to that being a lot stronger now. The bolt rifle increased by 10%. The bolt rifle's my main weapon when it comes to the tactical. I even used it in operations with the grenade launcher, because I think it's the Helldrake mission. If you tag it with Auspex and just spam the grenades, you basically kill it in 10 seconds, which is pretty OP. And you get your grenades back with the ammo crates scattered around the area. So, like, in a way, it's pretty OP. Heavy bolt rifle increased by 15%. The Stoker bolt rifle by 10%. The Marksman bolt rifle carbine 10%. Instigator bolt carbine 10%. The bolt sniper rifle 12.5. That's an interesting number. Not sure about that. But I don't get why it's 12.5. Why they couldn't just do a flat 12%. But then again, it's like, you know, a quarter of the 10% that's most of these. Anyway, bolt carbine 15%. Oculus bolt carbine 15%, and the heavy bolter 5%, because the heavy bolter has been the most well-performing bolter in all of these out of all the bolters. But let's go into what they've actually changed in the difficulties. So Ruthless, they've increased the armor by 10%, which is, they've basically just put it back to patch 3.0 armor, that's actually interesting, because they'd nerfed it by 10% and now they've increased it by 10%. So it's back to what it was in 3.0, which could be interesting. I don't want it to be too easy again. It is, like I said, Ruthless for a reason. So we are partially rolling back the change from the previous patch on Ruthless difficulty. Following your feedback, patch 4.1, we're hoping to find the right compromise between how easy Ruthless difficulty felt after patch 3.0 and how it felt in last week's patch 4.0. So they are really trying to find that balance between the easiest version and the hardest version, which I don't blame them. It's probably pretty difficult to find that balance, but you know, it is what it is, and well, you can't win at everything. The reason why it was reduced last week was that we noticed a very substantial bump in win rates after Ruthless patch 3.0, as minority enemies would no longer remove entire armor bar with their attacks, which obviously makes sense, because that was a big thing where, you know, you just have the Termagants, no, Homagants, yeah, the little guys. They just slap you once, like literally 3 of them mid next to you, just all hit you at the same time, and you just lose everything. And that was it's a big change, and I'm glad they've kept it like that. But anyway, I'm glad that they've buffed us back to 10%, but at the same time, it's still pretty difficult. Additional note, despite the last patch notes listing a decrease in the armor in substantial difficulty, this change was mistakenly left out of our last update, hence why you don't see it being reverted as part of this week's patch. So, okay, I'm guessing, well, I'm not sure, I'm really confused about that sentence. Are they saying that they didn't mean to put that in there, or that, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, another thing, lethal type formation system is finally been removed. Now, that was a system that everybody did not like. I certainly didn't enjoy it, and it was very frustrating to deal with. But I'm glad that they've finally removed that. Before anything else, let us clarify our reasoning for the introduction of this mechanic. As we worked on adding a new difficulty tier, we needed to make sure this new challenge was meaningful and interesting. With tight formation, our objective was to add a new layer of challenge to our most skilled players by adding horizontal progression rather than just vertical progression, i.e., more damage and stronger enemies. This game is more about power fantasy and the enemies that take dozens of melee hits to break it. Thus, the challenge needed to come from other sources. Okay, so they had a point to do this and make it add this mechanic to the game, which it in my eyes it did make sense, but its execution wasn't exactly brilliant. So I'm glad that they've removed that. I don't know if they'll be adding it on a later date, but fingers crossed they don't. The system was also designed as a step towards the introduction of gameplay modifiers down the line, both negative and positive, something World War Z players would be familiar with, which sounds pretty interesting. I'm looking forward to stuff like that. But your feedback showed that the proximity requirements felt too restrictive, like the assault class and the vanguard, especially penalised for as playing them effectively requires a certain freedom of movement. Like that does make sense because with the assault and vanguard, you are jumping right into the action, and the other classes sit back and basically give you some support fire. As a result, we're removing the system entirely and will continue to work on modifiers until they're ready. We will continue to monitor your feedback after the deployment of patch 4.1 to make sure lethal difficulty feels as challenging and rewarding as it should. Okay, so like I said, that this is a pretty good patch update. I'm pretty happy with it, honestly. So another thing they've changed is the AI. A current piece of feedback we've seen is that the AI allies can feel useless at times. We're already improved allies' behavior in patch 3.0, and we hope this additional buff will help solo players complete their operations. Oh my god, I'm tongue tied. I do apologise. Dots. My god, I'm really just losing it, aren't I? Bots deal 30% more damage to bosses, which, finally, that was a thing that I noticed. I don't know if that's only in operations, but I'm glad that it's, well, I'm glad that they fixed that. Fighting zoanthropes is often reported as a source of frustration. Alongside the changes to the AI director, we're taking away some of their shield's effectiveness to alleviate some of that frustration. The zoanthrope shield swap cooldown with another paired zoanthrope is now decreased by 10%. Hopefully they don't pop their shields just as much, which is getting pretty frustrated. General fixes in tech fixed the bug that caused roll distance to be shorter than before. Okay, so that was a bug. They didn't actually change that. That's actually kind of crazy. This is probably the most impactful and annoying consequence of patch 4.0. While iframes were the same, the distance difference made it much less effective versus range attacks. With this bug fix, you should feel a great improvement in your fights against range enemies and bosses. That was a big thing. A lot of people are saying that they've changed the dodge. They did it on purpose and they've not put it in the patch notes. It was a genuine bug, and I'm glad that they've clarified that. I do apologise. My throat is killing me. Fixed bug with unlocking lethal difficulty reward decals. Crashes fixed and general stability improvements. So I'm glad they finally fixed the decals because I've been really looking forward to upgrading my Silver Templar even more. But this is about it for the patch, and I'm so glad they've covered absolutely everything here. I hope I've not missed anything. Well, I'd like to think that I haven't missed anything. But I've pretty much covered everything, and I'm really glad that they've come out of this so fast. It's only been a week, and they've already reverted back and it's certainly a big deal that they've had such a fast response, and I'm so glad they're being so responsive. But yeah, that is about it. And thank you so much for watching. And if you want more content like this, please let me know. Give me a like, subscribe, and I'll try my best to keep up to date with all these updates. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.